Yeah, so Bluska, moving on from talking about Tua and Ryan Fitzpatrick, and let's talk about something a little bit deeper and more personal to us. And I'm sure that you can give us some good insight and some good examples about this. So what I want to ask you, and we're going to be talking about social media here, is like give me your experience about social media, how it's affected you in the sense, and how do you find it? Like what are your views on social media? Do you think it's a positive influence on you? Has it been a positive influence? Where have you seen negatives? So tell me about your social media experience.
Oh, that's juicy. I'm gonna start with this. Have you ever like checked your screen time on your phone? Because like I know phones like they tell you how many hours you spent on a particular app.
I have for like I've taken glimpses at it, but I've never really taken a huge like stock, or like I haven't had a moment where I looked at it and I'm like, damn.
Okay, that's
Like,
that's good.
but
Because
yo, I'm sure yours is insane. Oh my.
that's something that was always on my mind. I don't even know what's a high number, but I was looking at it like sometimes like a couple of years ago it was like or last year I should say like spending like hours of a day on your phone on Instagram or because there's always something to scroll at, and that's something that that was always sitting in the back of my mind. It's like, man, like all this time is just time that's just gone with the wind, neck down and just thumb whatever that action is. And I'm not even just I'm describing the action, but I'm sure you know what I'm doing right now with my thumb. But
He's
anyways, it's just
swiping
like,
right. No kidding. Yeah.
but uh, social media it's like a double-edged sword. Like the world is more connected than it's ever been, and you can essentially be in communication with anybody at any time of the day. You have to see life from the lens of everybody else. Like imagine 30 years ago we weren't alive, but like if we like we diverged a little bit, how would I? And I'm like, oh, what's the hell I'm doing? Like how's he doing?
Okay.
Like in this day and age, I could find out how you're doing and how your life's going. I can reach out to you. So to me, that's a really big pro of social media, being able to stay connected. But nowadays it's very much so commercialized. Like
Okay.
you can scroll down and just see a bunch of promoted posts, a bunch of like the biggest pages you follow are going to be what dominates your time feed, and that's where it's kind of lost its juice for me, and it's like, man, and if I'm spending 2 hours a day or whatever the time is on that, like where's the socialness anymore? That's just media. But yeah, so I deleted my Instagram because I was like, I want to get this habit out of it. I want to experience a little bit more of what's in front of me, because I'm realizing that that's something was taken out of my day. So I'm gonna turn it to you. What do you believe are like the pros and cons of social media?
Yeah, so Blasco, I'm really glad that you mentioned the importantness of. Okay, this is not like the first episode where we messed up the words, but yeah, the value. Let's go with value. So the value of social media in the sense of connectedness, right? And
Hmm.
I feel like it's important that people do stay connected because it can be so easy for someone to lose contact with someone if you're not in the same like bubble per se, right? If
Hmm.
someone's not in your immediate contact group, if you're not seeing them often, you could easily drift away from that person and not see them unless you get a notification on your phone saying like, oh, this person, it's like it's their birthday, or oh, this post of you guys together is like a year old. Yeah, and I really like that you mentioned the other side of it where it's making people kind of antisocial. And I remember I was watching a video that mentioned how social media is kind of making people more distant, where people are like, I don't know if I want to see you in person, I'd rather just like message you, right? Or some
Hmm.
people don't have the time to actually meet up anymore because they'd rather like Skype or Zoom call or something like that. Obviously not during this time because it's not like it's unprecedented, right? But
Mhm.
yeah, like a lot of people are, I guess, more social because of social media. They're more socially inept, and that's a really big drawback. I hope people can overcome. And in my experience for social media, I never was someone that wanted to post a lot of stuff online just because I was hesitant. And I also, to be honest, Buska, I don't actually like social media, and hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me because, to be honest, I never really seen the value of being able to see what other people are doing in the sense like I don't want to like like there is some people out there that post their achievements and it's really nice to see that, but sometimes when you look at those achievements you're just like, depending on your strength of like self value per se, you may like, or and depending on like your mood state, to be honest, you could
Mhm.
feel like devalued, right? If you see people doing all of these great things, but you never know what's on the other side of the coin, right? You can never know if this person's going through a lot of stuff and this is just a picture of them at their highest moment. But if you do see all the time people are like doing these great things, like nothing's bad's happening to them, you just feel like, oh, like what's happening to me? I'm not experiencing these quote unquote highs of like social media, right? And yeah, that can make people like shelter and turtle inside, right? And that's something about social media that I never really liked, and I never really wanted to be someone that posts a lot. But I think just because of this podcast and because of the other stuff I'm doing, I just try to get it out there as a way to obviously inspire, because that's one of the main values that we're trying to show through like everything that we do. And like I'm sure that's something in your creative pursuits, Bluska, that you're aiming to do as well, to like set an example, to put stuff out there. And social media is sort of a medium that we can do that. But yeah, Bluska, yeah, tell me more about like your positives and negatives of social media, because this is pretty deep stuff.
That point you had about people becoming more socially inept, like I can think of so many times that I'm also a victim of this. Like when you're in a room full of people that you decided to come hang out with, let's all hang out, and you look around and there's a moment in time where everybody's on their phone and it's like it's defeats the purpose, but it's also like an instant like, oh, I have nothing to do, I'll take my phone out. It's like a reflex almost, and it can be really absorbing because it's built that way. It wants you to stay engaged, just as any business will want to make sure you keep coming back. It's like same thing with social media. So that's a negative. And there's, and in terms of the journeys that people post and how every picture is always like a person at their one of their highest moments, if that's usually the case. But it's like, are we trying to portray that you know life is just dandy, or you know what I mean? It's like, hey, this is like my photo. Like it's pretty much your postcards. Your family code postcards. That's just online, I guess. Like you know what I mean? It's
Right.
just, it kind of gives us a false reality at the same time, because the conclusions you can make based on one picture that someone took, especially because you know how consuming likes can be. And I was watching a documentary about that. Young kids are just developing these things such as like body dysmorphia because of
Mm.
Snapchat filters, for example. We gotta invest in educating how the drop off of social media can, because it affects your dopamine, and that's the dangers of it too there.
Yeah, for sure. Think that's really that's an important point. Blaska talking about the effects of the youth of social media, and it's actually it's interesting because I remember having a conversation with a really good friend of ours about social media and youth, and we were mentioning how there might actually like there is a need to have in like elementary schools like classes on social media and their effects on people's physiology, man. Because yeah, people can actually get like affected like with your neurochemicals and stuff like that with like social media, and especially if you're someone that associates your self-worth, your
Mhm.
self-image with how
Yes,
many likes or reactions you get, right? It's
precisely.
something that it can have impacts, right? And I like for myself, like I don't see that many or obviously I don't have the biggest social media presence, right? But you can tell, and you can actually feel it in a way when you see that one post gets so much more like attention compared to another, and you're just like, oh, what happened here, right? And obviously that's something that we should be able to see past. But there is obviously people in the world where like, oh, if I don't really hit this specific social media target on my Twitter, my Instagram, or my Facebook, like I'm like, oh man, that means that people are not like paying attention to me, right? And that just like glosses over probably other issues that that person's facing, and it's a big thing. And yeah, you mentioned about something like so being socially inept in the sense that we are so inclined to just pop out our phone when we're just feeling uncomfortable. And I remember where I used to work in a restaurant where like in an open kitchen, people are waiting for their food and sometimes they don't want to like they're scared to like make eye contact with like the chef or something, and while they're waiting for the food they'll just pop out their phone just because that's something that feels comfortable right to them. And it's kind of sad because I feel like people should be more connected, and I feel like social media should be more of that medium. But yeah, I would say my closing thoughts on this and my tips to people that I'd like them to try maybe is just to keep looking up. You know, like it's obviously bad for your back to be hunched over, right, Bluska? So just keep looking
Mm-hmm.
up. Try to not reach to your phone when you just feel the itch in that situation, and be like you said, be present.
Be present. That's a challenge we can give out. It's like, that's a question. How many times do you think you reach for your phone when you don't actually need it? But to add to your conclusion, I will add that retweet button, that like button, those comments, it's scientifically proven to have an effect on your physiology, and we know everything about how mental health is related to your physiology as well, with your neuroreceptors and so on. So if we take that seriously, we should also be alarming people what they're getting themselves into, because social media is just another medium for life. All the things that you face in terms of social context in the world, with relationships and people, and that just brings it back. It's reflective of life. So it'd be wrong to believe that it doesn't have that kind of effect on you. So that's where I end with that.